I've just got an absolutely huge list of questions here, so I'm just going to rattle through these, get you some answers real quick. When do you pour the floor? Okay, so we pour the floor after the building's built. In 99% of the time we do it. The odd time we have done it where we do a foundation, pour the floor before, but we like to pour the floor after the building's built because it blocks the sun, the wind, the rain, everything. You get a better quality floor. Building rafters. How do you decide pitch, slope, dimensions of lumber used based on the span? Well, most of the buildings we're building are trusses, so those are engineered by the truss manufacturers. They all use the same software or something as far as I know, and MyTech or something I think it is, and they get that designs the trusses for the span, the snow load, all the other data that they have to put in there. So we don't actually have to figure that out, which is handy. Post frame construction, how is it different from other construction methods? So the way that post frame construction is different is you've got posts and then a beam, or like in some cases in Alberta, not too often in BC, but some other builders will do posts with no beam and have the truss sit on the post. What we're doing is we're doing a post every 8 feet. That's going to be on the foundation, whether that's screw pile, sonotube, concrete piling, true column, concrete foundation, whatever it is. And then there's going to be a beam across the top, trusses sit on that. Typical building, you're going to have stud wall. You're just going to have studs every usually 16 inches, maybe 2 feet. And so some of the advantages to post frame, you've got less thermal bridging. So you can actually have a better insulated building. Instead of having thermal bridging at each of those studs, you've only got thermal bridging every 8 feet. And another nice thing is adding windows and doors. You don't need a header. You've got a continuous header up top, so you can add windows and doors in there in between those 8 foot on center posts. You can even do them in a renovation down the road without affecting the structural integrity of the building. How long does it take to complete a typical project? Well, the time it takes to complete a typical project is totally dependent on the project that we're doing. So from signing the contracts to starting the build, you're looking at 3 to 4 months. And then depending on the size of your building, that's going to vary. Now, in some cases, if you don't need a permit, we can get to it a lot quicker than 3 to 4 months, but it's when you need a permit that it's going to take 3 to 4 months. Now, if you need something like we're running into some issues with a dog kennel, not real issues, just it's more required for the permit, that's going to take a little longer potentially. So there's variables on either side of that, but the typical shop, barn, or garage that we're building, 3 to 4 months from signing contracts to starting the build. Do you offer warranties or guarantees? Yeah, we do have a 10-year workmanship warranty on our buildings. The manufacturer of the metal's got a 40-year warranty on the paint that it isn't going to fade. So those are the warranties that we do offer. What is the cost range for building a shop, farm building, storage building, or aircraft hangar? So the cost range is going to totally depend on what you want to build. We don't do a lot that's below 50 grand. 50 grand is kind of the bottom of the scale. Pretty rare we're going to build an actual building with a foundation for less than 50 grand. And all the way up to, $1 million plus. So depends what you're building. What materials do you use and how do they contribute to sustainability? Well, we use wood. It comes from trees. They plant more trees and more trees grow. That's pretty sustainable. Do you handle permits? Yeah, you bet. We handle permits with most of the buildings that we build. You can handle them if you want, but most of the time we're going to handle them. The only time we can't is if we're building a shell for you and you're going to build living quarters in there and you're going through that all through the permit process and you're the homeowner builder. In that case, you're going to have to handle the permit process. We'll just help you, give you everything you need for it. What's the biggest clear span I can do with wood trusses? So the biggest clear span that we're going to do with wood trusses most of the time is going to be about 80 feet. And in BC, what you run into is that it's actually hard to get the trusses onto site. So that's actually going to be more of a factor than what the span could actually be. You're getting close to maxed out at 80 feet, but it is possible to design them for larger. It's just a matter of where the site is, the location, how can we get it to site? Are we going to be able to do that? Can I do the foundation myself? Great question. You can do whatever you want yourself. Do you know what you're doing is the bigger question, because most contractors don't really want to show up to something that's all messed up. So as long as you know what you're doing, do whatever part you want yourself. Foundation's a great thing to do yourself if you know how to do it. You can save yourself a whole bunch of money there. I would say site prep and excavation is a good way to save some money if you're trying to do some stuff yourself, put a little sweat equity in and you have the equipment. You can insulate it yourself. I always tell people that's like, you don't have to be smart to insulate. That's like the dang easiest thing you can do. So if you got some kids or you want to do it yourself, insulate the building yourself. save yourself a few bucks there. How far out are you booked? So the way we do our bookings for our buildings, for the new builds, is we guarantee a start within 6 weeks of permit approval. So we're based on the permit approval because we can't control how quick they approve the permits. We can try and do whatever we can to make that go as quick as possible, but it's based on permit approval, then we guarantee to start within 6 weeks. How thick should my shop floor be? So I actually just had a guy ask me this yesterday. Actually, he was pouring a pad for manure. He was wondering how thick he should do that if he's running on there with a loader, and I'm like, man, 6 inches is probably good. I guess you could do 8 if you want, but 6 inches is gonna handle pretty much anything. So we do all our shop floors at 6 inches with the 15M rebar in it, and it's a solid floor. Pretty much anything you throw at it is gonna be fine. I wouldn't go any thinner than 6 inches because it's harder to get the rebar in there and you're gonna end up with more cracking.